Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a little bit of light, awaiting Moshiach. The Rambam, Maimonides, when in his 13 Principles of Faith, when he talks about the 12th principle of the coming of Mashiach, mentions something that is actually mentioned in the Talmud about those who would predict when Mashiach would come. And Rambam writes, we do not, this is an English translation, we do not designate a specific time for his arrival, nor do we attempt to expound the various verses in order to glean from them the time of his arrival. There were people who were predicting when the year or when Mashiach would come based on verses in Tanakh. And the Rambam says that regarding such attempts, the sages say, may the minds of those who calculate ends, meaning the end of time, when Mashiach will come, suffer agony. They're very displeased with people who did that. And apparently, even already in the times of the Talmud, there were people doing that. Now, what's wrong with doing that? What should be so bad about predicting a time when he's going to come? Well, one explanation would be because nobody can really know for sure when he's going to come. So if you start telling people that Mashiach is going to come at this time, and he doesn't, that really can make people feel despondent and even question the whole principle of Mashiach coming. Because look, here was his prediction based on what seems to be a good basis, and it didn't happen. And therefore, our sages strongly discouraged making predictions. The problem is that throughout our history, there were sages who definitely were suggesting times when Mashiach would come. I'm not going to go through the whole list of them, but there is the Ramban, Nachmanides does it. You have I think it was Rav Sadia Gaon who did it. One from the times of the Gaonim. And the question is, well, the Talmud says you're not allowed to do that. You shouldn't be doing that. So why did these many sages, again from the period of the Rishonim, of the early sages, the period that we call the Rishonim, the Arizal, the great Kabbalist Arizal, he also made a prediction or suggested a time when he's going to come. That seems to be something you're not allowed to do. So why did they do it? And Rabbi Yaakov Robinson of Chicago, who has a very interesting work on the coming of Mashiach, or rather about awaiting the coming of Mashiach, cites a couple of reasons, a couple of ways of explaining why they did it. And I'll share with you two of them. One of them is that there's a difference between predicting when he will come or saying what's an opportune time to come. There are times that are opportune. And the many sages that talked about that suggested times were doing exactly that. They were suggesting it in the sense of saying that not that we are predicting that he will come at this point of time, but rather they were suggesting or they were saying that this is an opportune time for him to come, which means if it's an opportune time to come, then it's a time we should try to utilize for him to come. As we mentioned before, there's a set time when Mashiach comes. There's also the time through our actions we can bring Mashiach before that set time. And the opportune time means that this is a time that through our actions we can bring Mashiach. It's an opportune time for it. And therefore, in case he doesn't come, it's not going to be, it won't be people won't become despondent because they understand this was an opportune time to come. And if he didn't come, it means that we weren't worthy of it. So that's one explanation. Another explanation and actually he cites a very interesting Zohar, that the Zohar makes the statement that every generation has a case. Every generation has a time for when Mashiach is going to come. What does that mean? How could every generation have a time? But the answer is every generation has an opportune time for him to come. So that would be one approach. Another approach he brings from the Bnei Yissaschar, which I'm not sure if he means to say, I did not look up the Bnei Yissaschar about this, but Bnei Yissaschar could be basing what he says on this Zohar. But the Bnei Yissaschar says that the predictions were not incorrect, but rather these were actual times of redemption, but on a spiritual plane. Meaning it's not the redemption in its fullest sense of Mashiach coming and redeeming us, but saying that Mashiach would come at this point of time means to say that there was a stage, there was a redemption, a spiritual plane, there was a redemption. He, so to speak, came. And it won't be until Mashiach actually comes that we'll be able to understand what it means that there was a redemption at this point of time. So on a kind of more loftier level, the Bnei Yissaschar explains, right? And if it's based on, it could be based on this Zohar we just mentioned about the fact that the Zohar says every generation has its end, meaning has its time for Mashiach to come, or maybe this is how he explains the Zohar. But the point would be that these predictions were not incorrect, as much as the fulfillment of what was said happened more on a spiritual plane, on a heavenly plane, and when Moshiach does come, we'll understand all the stages of redemption that took place at all these periods of time. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Shabbos.